Modern life is rubbish.
Yeah, it's not a very positive T-shirt, is it? So that's this all ruined. But I was reading earlier that you were a big fan of Godzilla when you were growing up, and this character and all of the kind of legend that surrounds it. What is it about Godzilla that just has always appealed to your imagination?
I mean, you know, in the first stages, is as a kid just the biggest, baddest thing on TV. You know, it's a giant monster movie, and I just feel that there's a part of humans that's like, you know, you watch things from afar, like, oh, I'm glad that's not happening to me. You know, you just kind of watch it and think, what would I do? And then I started, you know, the older I got, I realized that Godzilla was protecting the Earth a little bit, the humans. We're just in the way. You know, the other creatures would come and they're destroying Tokyo or destroying whatever, and Godzilla comes from Monster Island, sets everything straight, and then goes back. You know, he's not really worried about us. And then he starts to become a hero, and from there, you know, with the times, he's always updated himself. Now with the technology we have, Godzilla's on some of the biggest scale we've ever seen, and I'm glad I get to be a part of that.
The character Godzilla is just so steeped in cinematic kind of tradition and history. I'm just wondering what it is for you that you think makes this character just so everlasting, that keeps bringing audiences back.
I mean, I feel like the character's persisted as long as he has because he's surprisingly complex. You know, it's easy to look at Godzilla and the other monsters and go, oh, they're just big rubber monsters beating the crap out of each other, and that's definitely part of the appeal. I think if you're a kid or a giant kid, that's sort of what initially draws you in. You know, it's just the primal spectacle of seeing giant creatures duking it out. But I think that the reason he's honestly lasted as long is because there's almost a subversive message underneath that. You know, there is a sprinkling of allegory and metaphor about mankind's connection to nature, and I think that surprising combination is what sort of has kept him around.
Yeah, because when I was growing up, I used to love the character as well, but the people I always hated were any of the humans in Godzilla films.
Yeah, who tried to meddle.
Yeah. But now you're one of the humans. Did you have to just get us and go, oh, well, I've got to be one of the humans now?
Yeah, my first thought was, well, nobody really cares about the soldiers in the Godzilla movie. But it's, you know, when you see what Barnes is representing is, you know, we're the military branch of Monarch. You know, and Monarch is, I think, something new to the Godzilla lore. It's an organization that's really about keeping the Titans contained and keeping them, you know, dormant, because we know that there's a natural ecosystem that they belong to, and if we meddle with that, if we mess it up, it could be the end of us. So we're good soldiers for Godzilla, G-Team.
Because in this instance, I mean, with any film, I imagine you'll do so. You know, you'll finish off a shoot, you'll have the wrap party, and then you think, right, now we go to the edit. In this instance, it must have felt, because there's so many of the scenes are huge battle sequences between two monsters. That was it a thing where you got back to the edit room and thought, right, in some ways, this is when the work really starts, because obviously so much of the film was put together in post.
Yeah, the film really was put together in post-production. It was over a year of post. The shoot itself lasts for a few months. It was one summer from June to September, but post-production was over a year, and that's where you really got to flesh out, figuratively and literally, the other performers, you know, the creatures, and it was a very long, grueling process, but every day was like a gift.
So did you have to separate the fan from the actor when you were on set? I mean, were there any moments that you were a bit kind of like, yeah, this shit's pretty cool? Was there anything that happened that you...
Hell yeah. You know, just being on those sets and like, there's Easter eggs everywhere. Like there's Easter eggs in the maps. You know, it's just like, as a nerd, you're just like drooling. You know, it's so much, so many hints to the next movie, hints from past movies. And so, yeah, you if you really love it, if you're passionate about your work, don't separate that fan from work, you know, embrace it. And I did every day, you know, it helps the early mornings when you know you're doing it for something you love, you've always wanted to be a part of.
Because I mean, this film is so ambitious, and I mean, the scope is so epic. It's one of those films that it's sort of unrelenting in how many big action sequences there are, in a good way. But did you just enjoy that as an undertaking? Do you enjoy going into a project thinking we've got so much to do here? Because I imagine when you start a project like this, when it's a kind of blank canvas, is that quite exciting, quite daunting to you when you know it's a lot to get done?
Both, you know, exciting and daunting. It's like climbing a mountain. But when you're climbing a mountain, you can't focus too much on the peak. You've got to focus on the next 10 steps ahead of you. That early part of the process is always really thrilling because that's where you really kind of lay down the themes and sort of step back and look at the whole tapestry. And then when you finally get the green light, then you got to roll up your sleeves and just sort of break it down and take it day by day, really.
Of course, your co-stars on Straight Outta Compton, Corey and Jason, were both in Kong.
Yeah.
Have you spoken to them about this? Because obviously, I mean, now there's Godzilla versus Kong, so it could be a bit of
I was mad jealous. Because we were doing Straight Outta Compton, and Corey and Jason was like, yeah, we going to Vietnam. I was like, for what? They're like, King Kong. And I was thinking like, damn, am I not good in this movie? I thought I was pretty popular. And then like later on in life, thank goodness I was able to get King of the Monsters. And then in my head, I'm thinking, all right, Godzilla vs. Kong is going to be Straight Outta Compton too. And like, they're in the 70s. So it just wouldn't have worked. And I was like, damn. But, I'm glad I get to be in King of the Monsters. I'm glad that we found a way into the Monsterverse. Now they need to figure out how to make us some superheroes, and then we should be fine.
So is there a real challenge because I guess when you come onto a project like this, you want to create something new, something that has your stamp on it, something that only you could create. But at the same time, you've got to remain faithful to the kind of the tropes of the franchise and what people love about it. Was that quite a tough balance for you to get right, to inject yourself into the project and yet still give the audience what they already love and what they already know?
Yeah, it was tough, but it was a top priority. As a fan, I loved going back and looking at sort of the long history and the old movies, putting them on in the background, and finding things that excited me, and sort of creating a wish list of what I consider to be iconic Godzilla moments or elements that you want to update and modernize, but also creating a side list of things that we've never seen in a Godzilla film before. Because I think that's part of the fun of the franchise, is that it's always acknowledging the history and the lore, but it's also creating new layers, fresh ideas that keep it evolving.
What's it like being a part of such a huge movie like this? I mean, obviously, because when you've made films recently, we've seen you in Long Shot, even Straight Outta Compton, films like that, which are, I mean, they're big movies, but I mean, Godzilla is this, when you've got this huge budget, which I imagine with like 4 times as many people on set.
Yeah.
I mean, what's it like being a part of that machine?
It was the biggest sets I've ever been on. I never had explosions happen at work, and like it was some of the, you saw them, this is how it was supposed to be done. You kind of, there's a certain feeling that you get on a project this big with a crew this great, and just how massive it really is and what you're taking on. And the word of the day is budget. When the movie has the budget, it is usually an amazing time on set. And I'm pretty sure they had it for this one.
I mean, it's quite a dark film in many sort of ways, but I read that you were sort of putting some pranks on set. Was there any that you were most sort of proud of, any pranks that you pulled off that you...
My favorite involved a life-size replica of Linda Blair from The Exorcist.
Who was the victim of that one?
Several people. I got her off eBay, had her shipped to Atlanta, and left her propped up in different actors' trailers. And then Millie and I sort of teamed up and we put her in Vera's trailer, but Millie, being as devious as she is, set it up so that the doll would essentially come lunging out at Vera when she opened up her trailer door. So yeah, she was a lot of fun.
And according to your IMDb, because that's obviously where I do all of my research, you got Space Jam 2. How do you fit into that one?
Not at all, dude.
You're not in it.
I know. The internet is too powerful. Yeah. Somebody took something I said and festered it into my IMDb, changing that I'm on Space Jam 2. But that's both Warner Brothers. And I would love to be in it, but I'm not in it, dude. I would love to, though. If you can get some online petition.
Space Jam 3. We'll get you in that one.
Shay Jam 2.
And my final question, obviously, you're involved sort of in Godzilla vs. Kong. I was just wondering how that's going to work, because I guess as an audience member, we've always taken sympathy to both characters. They're both kind of, and obviously, but in this instance, when it's Godzilla vs. Kong, it feels like we've got to pick a side. So I was just wondering about the kind of balance there, in the sense that they're characters that a lot of fans will go into loving equally. So how's that worked in kind of pitting them against each other and ensuring the audience still remain invested?
I think it's about giving the audience that dilemma of knowing that two creatures that we do feel empathy and sympathy for are sadly challenging each other. It's almost like an emotional tug of war for the audience, and that plays into the story itself. You know, that no one is necessarily rooting for one over the other as much as we're rooting for the hope that some sort of peaceful resolution might manifest, but also knowing like that's next to impossible when you're dealing with such aggressive territorial animals.
But you're going for Godzilla, aren't you? Let's be honest.
I mean, I've got my favorites, you know, he's called Godzilla for a reason, but at the same time, like, your heart goes out to Kong because he's an underdog, and because he is so much closer to human.
But just very funny, before I do go, I mean, what we have seen you do recently is comedy, and obviously, I'm just wondering about that as a genre, if you just enjoy doing that, if we're going to see you do more sort of comedies from here on.
Yeah, for sure. It's lighthearted, you know, it keeps you on your toes as far as improvising and things like that. You get to work with amazing people, and it's fun on set. It's fun because you're looking for the gold, you're looking for what's funny, you're looking for what works. And yeah, definitely, you know, I had an amazing time with Seth. Seth is a, you know, super cool dude, and he lets you feel welcome. And, you know, he's a titan in that world. So I do all things. If you notice my film resume, there's nothing I don't want to shy away from.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for your time today. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey!